Welcome to Unleash Your Inner Goldilocks, how to get it just right. Thank you for so much for joining us for another episode of insightful and engaging conversation. Today, we're going to do things a little different. We have our live group of live audience community here to talk about a valuable and important topic that shapes our lives personally and professionally, and that is emotional intelligence. Research shows that 70 to 75% of our success is directly correlated to our EQ, our emotional quotient, and only the balance is directly proportional to our IQ and our capabilities and our skills. And how are we experiencing that? What is working for us? What are we learning from this experience? And how are we investing, reinvesting, and enhancing our emotional intelligence so that we can each live a life we deserve is going to be the crux of the conversation. So thank you so much for joining us. And Robin and Dr. Nandini, it's an honor to be having this conversation. And I know you're going to come from your particular perspectives from life and profession. So let me kick this off with you, Robin, since you work in the leadership space and you help people navigate that leadership space successfully. What does emotional intelligence mean to you and the people you serve?
That is a great question. And I was just commenting to Dr. Nandini that just last week I was in a RISE boot camp through Leadership Global, where the presenter was talking about emotional intelligence. So I actually printed out some of my cheat sheets here. As I was thinking about this, for me, part of it boils down to teachings we've had for millennia, paying attention to how other people feel, paying attention to how you feel, paying attention to how you're interacting, paying attention to how are you coming across, how are people responding, the golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you, or the platinum rule, do unto others as they would prefer to be done by, so a lot of this has been around for millennia, and now I feel like we're giving it this more robust title of emotional intelligence. And I would say for me it comes down to being aware of myself and being aware of others and treating other people in a respectful way, even if I disagree with their position, which is very needed at this point in time.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Robin. Go ahead, Dr. Bennett.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Kass, for including me in this conversation. And I come from healthcare, where everybody knows it is and historically has been a very toxic environment. Like even our teaching methods are based on little bordering on bullying and teasing and calling out people in public, and so for me, emotional intelligence and the coefficient, I'm a late bloomer, so to speak. I only recognized my part of it about 5 or 6 years ago during the pandemic. That said, we are innately conscious of emotional intelligence in healthcare because we take care of people. So I feel that the disconnect in healthcare, where awareness of, as Robin said, myself is where it comes in, because we spend our entire life as women and as healthcare workers looking at how other people are and suppressing our own emotions, our own feelings, our own valuable needs and universal requirements. And so for me, the aha moment was recognizing that I was suppressing my own needs and desires and feelings, and therefore not being able to communicate effectively as a woman leader, as a physician, as a person in power, because I was so not used to understanding and coming down to the root of what my irritation or frustration was with a particular person, with a patient, with a issue. And that really came to pass like during the pandemic, when there was a lot of talk about healthcare and, you know, science and this being right, that being wrong. And for me to understand my patient again and to be able to see them compassionately and to be able to treat a person for who they are and who I am, and still be able to give them sincerity and authenticity of myself and them and their needs. And so I feel that's where it trickled down for me recently.
Yes. And that is such a introspective perspective. And I'm so glad as a eye surgeon, as an ophthalmologist, you're coming at it from your professional perspective. And that is valid because we all feel that medical professionals are in a different place, in a different category, right?
Yes.
I'm gonna look at it from a finance executive perspective. We deal with numbers, we deal with money. We live in a society where people are judged based on the portfolio of assets and money people have. And a lot of times, and almost always in my profession, we forget that the numbers reflect people. The numbers are an indication of underlying humanity and social reality. And we tend to make numbers-based decisions. And as an educator and a practitioner, I'm always trying to instill in my graduate school students, whether they are US military, public safety, private sector, or not for profit. I serve all of them in the educational space. How not to make decisions based on just numbers. Because when we do, that is the reason why our profession always creates all these economic crises. We act like we're sociopathic savants. We're so good with the numbers, but we're so blind about who it affects. And that creates social impact that lasts for generations and changes the trajectory of societies. And that behooves us to take a step back and look at, what are the numbers telling me? These are people, these are lives, these are social issues. These are life realities for people. And how do I relate to that? And how do I make decisions understanding that? To me, that's at the heart of emotional intelligence.
You know, it's very interesting because what's coming to mind is a very famous saying by Peter Drucker, known as the father of modern management. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, and that in the finance world, particularly, you can have all these strategies, but if your corporate culture just is very toxic and is very non-emotionally intelligent, those strategies are going to go out the window. And we have seen it time and time again. Also, when I was listening to Dr. Nandini talking about the correlation between, with the health industry, and one of the things that they found is that doctors are, what their biggest complaint, I'm so busy, I don't have time to connect, especially with filling out paperwork and getting all this stuff for the insurance companies. There's so much behind the scenes and all the paperwork that I don't have time to connect with as a human being, to my patient. Yet they found in dealing with cancer patients that they wrote out like a little, it's like it took like 15 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to say this, something empathic or empathetic, sympathetic, compassionate. I know this is hard. We're going to work through this together. I'm doing everything I can to help you feel better. Something along those lines. It literally only took like 15 seconds to say. But the doctors who would say that little thing, maybe before and after the conversation, their patients had better I don't know what the terminology is for when you get better faster, but those responses were better just by the doctors taking 15 seconds, you know? So I think that a lot of this is realizing it doesn't take a lot. It can be small things to bring about a great change, a great difference. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I agree with you, Robin, that, just that small 15 seconds of connection and just being open and allowing the other person to see the humanity in me, is what also helps, and so I think that's why it's really important, because I only started understanding that vulnerability and openness to my patient is not a sign of weakness, because that's one of the things we're taught. You can't show your emotion, you have to be the adult in the room at all times, and you have to be this person that is 100% perfect, and so the emotional toll and stress that it takes on the physician to be that way, is immense. And so the other half of emotional learning, self-awareness, and understanding where we're at is to help with burnout for us as individuals in each of our uh, situations or professions, and learning to recognize that really early is essential. And I wish I had learned that emotional, connection. And I'm a big proponent, and I'm learning about nonviolent communication by Marshall Rosenberg, and he talks about universal needs, and trickling down observations of what's going on in your day, putting that and understanding your own feeling, attaching it to a need, and meaning a universal value like care, compassion, support, communication, connection, health, well-being, those kinds of needs. And then making a request of yourself or somebody else, depending on what you're doing. And so these little things of just connecting, okay, I'm irritated right now because I'm 10 minutes behind or 2 hours behind in my clinic, and instead of putting that stress out, to recognize, okay, why am I irritated that I'm an hour late? It's because I value other people's time, and then recognizing, yes. And the flip side of it is I'm an hour late because I care, and I took my time and I did these things to help the people that I have helped. And it's okay if I'm an hour behind in my clinic. Don't be stressed about it, because you're an hour behind because you care and you communicated and you connected and you've helped X amount of patients. And if 2 patients leave because they're irritated, that's okay. Let it go. It's all right. And then moving with your day. And I'm so happy that I found that medium of being able to connect and reconnect. And I'm hoping that a lot more people learn to do that, so that there's a lot more people in the world that continue working late, into their 70s and 80s as physicians again.
That is absolutely spot on, Nandini and Robin.
Yeah.
You're talking about things that are so relevant. And in the crux of all of that is fundamentally, we are human. That means we are feeling beings who happen to have the capacity to think and act. The minute we forget, based on social norms, social conditioning, whatever controlling pressures that are put upon us from cradle to grave, that feeling is bad, feeling is not bad. Recognizing the feeling is where humanity begins, right?
Yes.
How do we start there? How do we give our sons and daughters the power to do that? And I intentionally use the word power, because if we teach our children the power of emotion, how to recognize that, how to modulate that, Because and getting angry is not a bad thing. Knowing why am I angry, what am I angry at, to what degree should I show it, and how do I utilize that anger to fix the situation and make it a better world? Now, there is a positive way of using anger, right? So how do we teach our children, and how do we make it okay in society? And especially, how do we make sure daughters are not raised to be good girls, therefore suppress your emotions and please everybody else? And then boys are not supposed to feel, so suck it up. We're damaging both.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting in this book, the core book, Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Gorman, is fabulous. Tends to be a little heavy academia, which I love, but maybe not everyone loves. But there's a book came out, Emotional Intelligence 2.0 by Travis Bradbury and Jean Greaves. They break it down into 4 components, which I think are very useful: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And I think by having kind of these categories that we can think about, and definitely what Dr. Nandini already mentioned is, self-awareness. If I'm completely oblivious to how I'm even feeling and how I'm coming across to people, how can I make any adjustments? And then, it was once I become aware of how I'm doing it, reminds me of this line from this really old movie, War Games. You're doing it now. Tell me when I'm, being a jerk. You're doing it now. So if we can each have an internal, you're doing it now moment, that then we can begin taking some steps to manage that, not beat ourselves up. Like Dr. Nandini said, look at the flip side of it, of why did this happening, because of a positive trait that maybe I'm overusing, and then how can we then from there be able to open our eyes and see, how am I impacting other people? Sometimes you hear stories about things that people have said, and it's like, oh my gosh, do you listen to yourself? Did those words actually come out of your mouth? And then relate, and then obviously, how does that impact our relationship? So for me, that was very helpful, looking at, self-awareness, then self-management, then social awareness, and then relationship management. And I think that can be, you can use those categories for really any age.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people don't recognize also that, the self-awareness and emotional component of recognizing your emotion and understanding the other, it has a lot of spiritual awareness required as well. So it also builds your spirituality. Doesn't matter what religion you are, or even if you're an atheist, it's just amazing once you start going down this path of trying to figure out, okay, why am I feeling this way? Why am I doing this? Why are they feeling that? Why did they misinterpret what I said? Why did am I misinterpreting what they said? It really brings back that hones you back into yourself, and you have to release your ego. You have to humility, turning the other cheek, all these components of all the various religions, detachment, and even being a little bit unattached, and stepping back and understanding other people is a requirement for us to be together as a community and work together as a community, because all of us have different baggage, right? And some baggage we know, some baggage we don't know. And I'm just amazed at how many times when I just take a breath and ask someone, so when you said this, what did you mean? Instead of jumping into the conclusion of saying, oh my God, they think I'm this. They did that because, they don't like me, or they're X, it creates that them versus us and and just pausing to ask the question, which is the first step of self-awareness and did you say societal awareness?
Social
So, yeah, social
social
awareness.
awareness. Yeah.
Social awareness, Rob, yeah, is so emotionally and spiritually and so wholesome when you start doing it.
That is brilliantly said, Nandini. And as a whole person, I have more than my emotion, right? But my emotion is driving my psychological framework, right? It is guiding my actions. It is bringing my spiritual presence into play. And it's also teaching us how to build human relationships in our personal lives. There's a reason why the divorce rates are high. People can't have a interpersonal relationship. Everybody is talking on text. I know couples who sit in the same house across from each other and text each other. And I ask them why, and they say, if we talk, we'll fight. So this way, we don't have to be emotionally involved. How can it be a marriage if there are no emotions involved? Is it just a transaction? Is it just a convenience? Are we just roommates? Right? Where is that spiritual, emotional, psychological connection, even in that familiar relationship? And then what are we teaching our children as they watch us? Because now we say these kids are walking around with devices. They don't know to connect to humans. But why? We're
Yeah.
the ones who gave them devices the minute they were born and said, hey, honey, watch this. We never created that human bond. How do we now create that bond so that the children are going to grow up with emotional intelligence to have meaningful relationships and deeply, deeply impactful careers?
Well, obviously, as parents, we need to put our cell phones down. We need to no phones at the dinner table. Even dinner only lasts for 15 minutes. For 15 minutes, you do not need to have your phone at the table. Right now in Los Angeles, they are now having trying to implement and doing some experimenting with phone free zones. The kids still have to be able to have access to their phone in an emergency, but no phones allowed. You have to keep it in your pocket, whatever. We'll see how that experiment goes. But but I think modeling, I think, is obviously very, 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 very important. And I had another thought that I was going to share that was related to something that was commented about a little earlier. But anyway, if it jumped out of my mind, but definitely modeling is something that we absolutely can do and absolutely need to do. And modeling with each other. So. Yeah.
So it's interesting as adults, we are learning and we are perfecting this, but it's so much easier to teach it to kids when they're young. And children inherently know how to be kind and compassionate to one another because it's these other things that are taught. So if we just allow children to be the way Mother Nature and God created them, this is not an artificial thing we have to teach them. So the key is not to break them, to allow them to blossom into who they were meant to be to begin with.
One thing I think is really useful, and Nandini touched on this, is a lot of, as we become self-aware, a lot is to become aware that a lot of the emotional pain that we feel or frustration that we then lash out or hurt other people as a reaction to, a lot of that is self-imposed. And it's because we are assigning meaning to someone else's behavior, and the meaning is it's not just that it's not that they're only that they're doing this thing that we find irritating. They are doing it to us. They're doing it on purpose to annoy us or to hurt us. So to me, it's a double whammy. It's a not win, is not only are they doing the thing that is inconvenient or annoying, then I have the emotional pain on top of that, thinking, and it's only my thinking, that they're doing this on purpose. They may or may not be doing it on purpose, but usually I'm the one layering this negative meaning and attaching this meaning to their action, when it might be they're just doing it because that's what they do, and there is no meaning attached to it. So a lot of the pain and the frustration that we blame other people for is in reality is just of our own making.
Right. That's so true, Robin. And that's what I love about the nonviolent communication. The trickling down, the first step is observing, and state the observation. Like, for example, I told my husband to buy milk for me because he was going to the store, right? He rushed in, he came home, he didn't buy the milk, right? I have two options. Usually what we say is, oh my God, you forgot the milk. I told you to buy the milk. You don't love me. Da, 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 da. It just shows how much you don't care. I really need that, and then, and the other option is to ask why, like, hey, what happened? Like, to recognize that there's so many other times that your spouse or your dad or your mom or your sister or whomever cares for you. So the fact that they didn't buy the milk in this one instance doesn't mean they did it just because to spite you. There must be some other reason. And if you just ask why, and you just state the observation, you don't put in all your emotion, and you just say, hey, I remember asking you to buy the milk, and I noticed that you didn't buy the milk, right? That's the observation, and then recognizing I'm feeling concerned or sad because I really want the milk because, I love my coffee with milk, right? And then connecting that need for pleasure for coffee and enjoyment with my feeling right now. And then, going to the, so, and then asking the request, so what happened? As opposed to what you just said, Robin, creating our own pain and putting it on them, right? And so it's been really eye-opening, and it's given me a structure. And I guess, I'm in medicine, so obviously I like structure, so being able to, I remember in a session, I've been multiple times I've been told you don't recognize your emotion, and you don't know what emotion you're in. And I'm sitting there going like, no, I know I'm angry. Like, I know I'm happy. What do you mean I don't recognize my emotion, in a fight? And just being aware of now knowing the emotion and recognizing and understanding the need behind it is like, oh, I get it now. That's what they meant when they said, I don't recognize my emotion. I'm lashing out, but I'm lashing out at you when I'm actually not taking responsibility for my own emotion and my own need. So if the milk was really that important to me, I should have gone myself and got it, right? Why am I putting the responsibility of my thoughts, my actions on somebody else? Take back that power. I am a powerful being. I am a powerful person and human. I have the power for my own emotions and my own anger and my own happiness. It's not external, it's internal. And that is the biggest spirituality that I have learned through my journey.
And that is so beautifully said to bring this amazing conversation to a close, Nandini. You and I come from a society where we believe the divine is inside of us, right? We're not looking for the divine outside. Our soul is the divine. Therefore, the most important relationship each of us are going to have is actually with the divine within ourselves. So whether we call it our soul or the Western world calls it spirituality and your spirit, it doesn't matter. We all need to connect with ourselves. And we need to understand ourselves, and we need to value ourselves. And then we allow other people to do the same. And then as two healed humans, we come together to then build something on top of what we already bring to the table. So to me, the power of emotional intelligence is all the elements we're talking about, but also to show up in our own centeredness, as Goldilocks says, right? Not too hard, not too soft, not too hot, not too cold. What is that just right state of being from cradle to grave? We came into the cradle having that, and social conditioning loses that for us. How do we hold on to it? How do we successfully leverage it to live a good life? And in the process, how do we build meaningful relationships? And how do we live a good life in the way our Maker intended and in the way we believe we deserve? So, in closing, what I want our audience to take away is pause. Take a pause and think about, how are you feeling? Why are you feeling what you're feeling? How is your baggage affecting how you interpret that feeling? And how are you going to make the change to make your life more peaceful? And how are you going to pass it on to the younger folks around you so that they don't have to unlearn bad behavior to get back to what nature gave them, but to hang on to what nature gave them so that they live a successful and meaningful life? So go out there and follow Goldilocks' lesson and work at getting life just right.